This case is a little different from my usual, but it is an interesting case about an Irish housewife from County Mayo who built what some would call a cult after claiming to have received visions of the Virgin Mary and Christ since 1985. In doing so, she decided to set up a group as such called Our Lady Queens of Peace House of Prayer on Achill Island in County Mayo, with other centres in the United States and Mexico. Achill Island is an island off the west coast of Ireland. It is the largest of the Irish Isles and is connected to the mainland by a bridge, which was built in 1887. Roughly half of the island is in the Gaeltacht, which is the traditional Irish-speaking region of Ireland, although the vast majority of the island's population speaks English as their daily language. Over the years, Ireland's population, you could say, has become disillusioned with the Catholic Church, mostly because of scandals, from child abuse to priests and bishops not respecting their vow of chastity and having affairs with their parishioners and children out of wedlock, and so on. So, some people turned elsewhere for spiritual guidance, such as Scientology, New Age, the Moonies, and the Mormons. But because these religions are far from the Catholic teachings, there were some religions that were not, and so people were easily sucked into the type of fellowship that Christina Gallagher had to offer. Christina Gallagher was born in 1953 in the town of Charlatan in County Mayo. She would get married and have 2 children and live a pretty ordinary life. Christina would always claim to be a bit of a medium and would often open her house to people wishing to connect with the spiritual by reading palms, bringing messages from the other side to loved ones, and tarot readings. In 1985, Christina was with a group at Cairns Grotto in County Sligo when she claimed to have seen a vision of the suffering Christ's head and subsequent visions of the Virgin Mary in 1988. Over the next few years, she would return to the same grotto, hoping to have more visions and messages from the Virgin Mary. She claimed to be a prophet and to suffer from stigmata on her feet and forehead. Eventually, she would decide to set up a fellowship as such, because by then word had got out that a woman in Mayo was getting visions and had the Virgin Mary speaking to her directly. She also developed the ability of speaking in tongues and bilocation, which is the ability to appear in 2 places at once. Soon the gift of healing was granted upon her, which brought her to the next level. All these new abilities took its toll on Christina, and so to help her she was put in contact with a priest in Dublin, Father Gerard McGinty, and soon he would become what some people would call Christina's sidekick or co-conspirator, depending on who you asked. He would spiritually guide her and help her interpret her visions and messages. Getting his support legitimised Christina with the Catholic Church and therefore the Irish people, with Father McGinty spreading the word across the nation through other priests who spoke about Christina's gifts. The House of Prayer was to bring priests and laity together to pray and worship as requested by the Virgin Mary in visions Christina received. She purchased a former convent in 1992 and it needed a lot of renovations done to it and therefore lots of donations. When asked why she would buy such a run-down building, she said that St. Patrick himself came to her and told her to buy it, as it represented the Catholic Church, which was run down and rotting from the core to the outside. By 1993, it was officially opened by the then Archbishop of Tuam, Joseph Cassidy. So by all accounts, Christina had the support of the Catholic Church to begin with anyway. Of course, because it was a religious organisation, it was tax exempt, and so it wasn't long before donations that didn't need to be accounted for came rolling in. Thousands of people over the next few years would make the pilgrimage to the House of Prayer in the hope to meet with Christina and witness one of her miracles and hear one of the Virgin Mary's messages straight from Christina. Of course, what is a pilgrimage without a gift shop, which sold very expensive souvenirs that Christina said held special powers that basically stop bad things happening to you and protect you from the disasters that were going to be rained on the earth. Included in items for sale in the gift shop was £250 pictures of the Virgin Mary and £50 for the holy water. And then you had the usual stuff like postcards, rosary beads and statues. And of course they had a cafe to boot. You could safely say Christina had a right little business going. When followers raised an eyebrow at her decision to put a jacuzzi in the house of prayer in Achill, they were told nothing is too good for Our Lady. Some might think that referring to Christina's house of prayer as a cult might be a little overreaction. After all, it was Christian and supported by the Catholic Church. But what makes a cult and why was it considered as a cult? First, I will explain cultish behaviour, and then I will tell you what else Christina and her minions got up to behind closed doors. A cult is led by a very charismatic leader, and he or she usually keeps people in their circle through fear. They will convince their followers that they are special and anyone outside in the real world are bad and doomed to go to hell. They will tell the people that they are the chosen ones, but being chosen is not enough, that it comes with sacrifice, giving up all they own or most of it anyway. They are told that something terrible is going to happen, basically the end of the world, which instills fear, and the only way to save yourself is listening to them and donating lots and lots of money. She claimed to predict in 1990 the Iranian earthquake of that same year, which killed 50,000 people. In 1992, the genocide in Rwanda that happened in 1994, even including a prediction from 1999 when she visited New York and she told a friend that if New York didn't make good with God, the Twin Towers would come down. Of course, all this was proclaimed by Christina after the actual events, and other events were decades out of her own timeline. Of course, if you investigate these natural disasters or even wars, they would easily be expected and predicted because of the countries involved, except for the Twin Towers, I guess. I don't think anyone saw that one coming, but again, Christina only said she said it in 1999. There's no proof that she actually did. There are many testimonies of healings also crediting Christina. An elderly woman claimed that she had lost the use of one of her hands and that when she attended the house of prayer, she regained mobility in her hand. Another woman testified that when she was pregnant with her first child, she went for her 7-month ultrasound. She was told that her baby no longer had a heartbeat and that she would have to book in to have her baby removed, but she refused to do so until she spoke with Christina. She made her way to Achill and prayed with her. A week later, she returned to the hospital and they performed another ultrasound, and to the doctor's astonishment, the baby had a heartbeat. 1 month later, she gave birth to a perfectly healthy baby. Another woman that first became ill in 1997 was suffering from jaundice and severe stomach pain. She was admitted to hospital where she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and told she was terminal. Her husband began to do research in alternative care and cures and came across stories of healing at the house of prayer. He drove his wife straight to Achill from the hospital, thinking they had nothing to lose. Christina and Father McGinty began praying with the couple upon their arrival at the house. On the way home, the woman began eating on her own, the first time in months. As before this, she had to be fed by tube. Over the next few days, her jaundice completely disappeared. Her appetite returned and all symptoms of her cancer was gone. A man from England also made the pilgrimage to Achill Island in 1997. He had suffered injuries to his back in a freak accident, and it brought on severe arthritis, and he was always in pain, so much so he couldn't even hold a cup. He flew to Ireland with his mother, who had been to the house of prayer the year before. He attended Mass there and felt a pull to take Holy Communion. Upon taking it, he immediately felt like he was healing from the inside out. He felt a tapping along the crushed vertebrae of his spine. When he prayed with Christina later that day, he felt the tapping again, and he went into a spasm which caused him excruciating pain as Christina prayed over him. Returning to his hotel, he lay down on the bed, and that is when his healing began. His complexion changed, his arms, legs and neck felt bigger, and he was able to reach down and put on his socks. He visited his doctor when he got back to England, and he told him his back was normal again. As we know, healing is deep in Christian beliefs, as Jesus healed many, along with his disciples through the power of the Holy Spirit. While all these stories are amazing, how true they are must be questioned, and what details were left out is unknown. Was it divine intervention or medical intervention? I'll let you decide for yourself. We do know that the Christian faith, including the Catholic Church, are big believers in healing, and that is how we have Lourdes in France, Fatima in Portugal, Medjugorje in Bosnia, to name just a few. But we can't ignore that they are also big tourist attractions, and a lot of money is made from these places. And so it is in the interest of the country to keep a belief going, and Ireland is no exception. Ireland had already gone through the moving statue era, which all started in 1985. It was reported that over 30 statues across the country were moving, and I even remember going to the grotto outside Waterford as a child to see the statue of Mary move. What I found was if you look at anything long enough, it will move. The church eventually condemned these sightings and put it down to what I just said, and to sunlight and the moon reflecting on the statues. One bishop stating it is an illusion. Anyway, back to our Christina. So I suppose the biggest thing about the House of Prayer was the money that it was making through donations and acquiring property and money through people leaving it to them in their wills, which as you can imagine left families very unhappy and questioning. Christina was right up there with the mega churches that were seen in America. She had thousands of people visiting the House of Prayer 7 days a week, but this would not last. In 2008, a TV programme called Primetime began an investigation into Christina, Father McGinty and the House of Prayer, and what they would find shocked most of the country. It would expose the financial side of the goings-on there. In 2006, the church lost its tax exemption status, and so this prompted an investigation into their finances. The Catholic Church also cut ties, and this again made people suspicious, especially the ex-members who had donated money. It showed that Christina and Father McGinty would frequently preach about setting up new churches all around the world, and their help was needed to fund this. That these churches needed to be built to save the people in the areas from the upcoming disasters. Over the years, the House of Prayer did set up several houses in the US and Mexico, but not as many as they claimed, as some ex-members divulged. Father McGinty was the main driving force in gathering funds. He would go around to nursing homes and speak with the elderly. One story was told of Father McGinty passing around a sheet of paper and asked everyone to pledge a lump sum, and when it came back to him it amounted to £1 million, which he was not happy about. He was looking for 2 million, and so the paper was passed around again, and it came back as 1.8 million. People donated their houses, land and savings. Another story was told of an elderly couple who had wrote him a cheque for €200,000 in 2005, and their son brought High Court proceedings against the House of Prayer in 2016, claiming his father suffered a spiritual injury from being pressured into handing over the money. Because the House of Prayer was being investigated by Gardaí since 2008, and files had been obtained from the premises, along with other donators who were suing the House of Prayer, all were settled out of court to the amount of €250,000. Christina bought a house for herself in Newport, County Galway in 1996, claiming she was being hounded by the media and had no peace and felt unsafe where she was. It was a 5-bedroom house which she poured another £300,000 into renovations. In these renovations, she also accommodated Father McGinty to the house. She also bought another house in a gated community in Malahide in Dublin, worth £4 million during the Celtic Tiger era, and at the time it was the second biggest house in the gated community. She was now living among the Irish elite. They did expand to the US, having properties in New York, Florida, Ohio, Texas and Minnesota, and they even have property in Mexico. Funds were also raised through a confraternity of Our Lady Queen of Peace run in the US by Christina's associate John Rooney. In 2009, this church had an income of $3 million and assets of $6.7 million. A lot of this money was acquired through scaremongering, like here in Ireland, that if people did not donate, God would destroy the area to where they wanted to build. Because the House of Prayer was no longer tax exempt, their filings in 2023 to the CRO showed that the House of Prayer had liquid reserves of €1.8 million at the end of 2022. Accounts published in 2015 showed the amount of nearly $500,000 through donations. In the 2017 accounts, it showed that Christina was paid €100,000 by her company after they bought 5,000 copies of her own book. In June 2011, all three directors, two of them being John Rooney in the US and a woman named Magella Mead, the chief fundraiser for the House of Prayer Limited Company, resigned but agreed legal terms that prevented them from discussing their concerns with the media. In 2020, Christina was in the headlines after advising her followers not to take the vaccine for the virus that nobody is allowed to mention now. She said she had received messages from the Virgin Mary not to take it, and of course this caused great concern for the families of these followers. She said you will be called upon to receive the vaccine that is death, and the mark of the beast will be forced upon you. Those that receive it willingly will die unto eternal death. The House of Prayer in Achill closed its doors in the summer of 1998. Christina did not inform the Archbishop at the time, Dr. Michael Neary, of its closure, but announced on a radio show. The secretary for the Archbishop told reporters that they did not ask for Christina to shut it down, but did say in a statement that the House of Prayer started off as a small operation and had been intended to stay that way, to act as a retreat house. But very quickly it became something different, a kind of de facto shrine. The Archbishop therefore was trying to bring it back to the structure of the church, and inevitably that brought certain restrictions. So while you might think this would be the end of Christina Gallagher's endeavours, it is far from it. She is still going strong, and she still has a huge following who are still donating towards her lifestyle. In June 2025, a Sunday World newspaper reporter tracked her down at a casino in Dublin. When they found her gambling on the slot machines, it was described as something out of Father Ted. After a 4-month investigation, she was approached by the reporter at Dr. Quirky's casino in Philsborough in Dublin. Onlookers said they saw her with wads of notes in her hand, and she told onlookers that she was having a lucky night, although she wasn't lucky when the reporter approached her and asked her how she thinks her followers, who had donated money to her, would feel about her gambling away their money. Christina says she only gambles the odd time as she stood up, grabbed her bag and tried to walk away quickly from the reporter. The reporter followed her and grilled her, asking if she was using donations to gamble. Her reply, no, no, no. The reporter also asked her, what does Jesus say about gambling? That Jesus said you cannot serve two masters, money and God, and asked her which master she served. It then became apparent she was looking for someone she was with, who was gambling at another slot machine. That man turned out to be former House of Prayer Company Secretary and Christina's close confidant, Noel Guinan. She had told Guinan they had to leave immediately, and the two made a beeline for the exit. When the reporter spoke to the other patrons in the casino, they told him that she had been coming there for years and present nearly every night, with large amounts of cash in hand. When Christina and Noel left the premises, the reporter followed them and continued to question them as they both got into a 7 Series BMW and drove off. Later, when Christina would be asked about it, she would say it wasn't her, that the pictures and videos were doctored to make it look like her.
I got one going out once or twice. Once or twice, yeah. You see people in their phones who've been here twice. No. Thousands at a time. What? Yeah, thousands at a time. Yeah. Please don't go down that road. Well, it's just, you know yourself, was it Jesus himself who said that you can't serve two masters, money and God? No. And which master would you serve? No, I didn't. Would it be money or God? No. We don't want to talk about it? No, is it? What's the problem? Well, it's just, I'm just asking Christina about her followers and all that she gambles in the casino all the time. I've had people who call me from there gambling thousands of euros at a time. No. And you've been down here a lot of times. No. A lot of people have said. It just seems very unusual, you know, with all the money coming from the house of prayer, you know, gambling. Open the door. Like they're big money machines out there, aren't they? You don't say that about it, no?
Also in 2011, it was reported that Christina acquired another mansion in Shropshire in England in her son's name, worth £2 million. In 2006, she bought her daughter a €1 million house in Ballina in County Mayo. She also bought another property in 2013 in Coldwater Lakes in Sagart in Dublin, worth €1.1 million, and lived next door to the Keenan drug cartel. This was all done even though Christina had no visible income or job as such. Cult expert Mike Gard, who has helped former followers of the fake visionary and their relatives over the years, said that he hopes what has been uncovered will show her remaining devotees the reality of what drives Christina. She is driven by money, not by holy pursuits, he said. The House of Prayer has no charitable status and is run by a limited company, Our Lady Queen of Peace House of Prayer Company Limited. The House of Prayer is still very much active. While they shut down their original website, they do have another one. They still have an online shop where you can still make purchases, but unfortunately, while making this video, the €250 framed pictures of the Virgin Mary are sold out. They are still bringing in millions of euros and dollars to this day, and it was only in 2021 that they bought the property in New York, a disused synagogue, for $2.1 million. This woman, in my opinion, and in the opinion of others, should be excommunicated by the Catholic Church. But at the same time, it would be too little too late. The DPP were going to bring proceedings against her, but decided not to. Therefore, the Gardaí withdrew from the investigation. So all we can do is use social media to get the word out there in the hopes of exposing and stopping this woman, and make her ashamed to show her face. Christina Gallagher preyed on the most vulnerable of society, the old and the weak, who spent all their lives fearing God and fearing they wouldn't get into heaven. I can tell you one thing, there is nowhere in the Bible where it says you can buy your way into heaven, and nowhere does it say you can speak to God through Mary or any other except Jesus. John 14:6. I am the way, the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Meaning Jesus is the sole path to God, not Mary, not priests, bishops or the Pope, and definitely not through Christina Gallagher. Being a woman also, she is supposed to be silent according to the Bible, 1 Corinthians 14:34-35 and 1 Timothy 2:11-12. Paul instructed women to be quiet in church gatherings, to maintain order and not teach or assume authority over men. I know this case might have ruffled a few feathers and in turn not too happy with me, and that's okay. I do not agree with what Christina Gallagher has done and continues to do, but we also need to look at what these other religions have done to their people and the power and riches they have accumulated over the centuries. The cynical side of me would say the Catholic Church turned their backs on the House of Prayer because of all they had accumulated over the years, and what was going into Christina's pockets was taking from the Catholic Church's pockets. I would also say, in my opinion, that they have not excommunicated Christina because maybe they are getting donations themselves from her, and that is again the cynical side of me speaking, but it is food for thought. Vatican City State is an independent sovereign country with its own territory and has its own laws and currency, and the Pope is the ruler and answers to nobody, and it is that way for a good reason, to protect what they have. So while we criticise Christina and her wrongdoings, is she any different to any other religious bodies who take from the poor and the rich, promising them eternal life if they give up all that they own? The Bible does speak of giving up possessions and give to the poor and follow Jesus, but he does not say it will get you into heaven or eternal life. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. That is what you must do. Believe. It is that simple. I could go on, but this video would end up off topic and never ending. Thank you all as always for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to check out my other channel, Irish Coffee True Crime International, if you haven't done so already.